I've spent the last few weeks reading the entire Women's Prize for Fiction 2026 shortlist, and I genuinely have no idea which book I was going to pick out to be the winner. Several of these books made me cry as I was reading them, and one inspired me to start writing letters, and one of them has stayed with me for long after I turned the final page. I'm still going back to it, even when it was like the first book that I read. So today, I'm going to share my prediction for which book will win the Women's Prize Fiction 2026. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Florence, and this is the One More Book podcast channel. I really do hope that I manage to post this online before the announcement of this year's Women's Prize for Fiction 2026 is announced. The announcement is going to happen in 6 hours, and I need to go to work. I don't know how I'm going to edit this video and post it, but I'm going to do my best. I've finally done it. I need to clap for myself. I decided to do a reading challenge and read all the books in the Women's Prize for Fiction 2026 shortlist. And I think I got a bit distracted because I also read some that were long listed, but I reeled myself back in. And this was one of the most amazing experiences that I've ever done. I think I should do more of these challenges. I laughed, I cried, I highlighted countless pages. I made notes. My TBR got longer because I got so many new books and so many new ideas. And really, for the longest time, I just had no idea which book I would choose as the winner. But I waited until I finished the last book and slept on it. And I think I now have a winner. In fact, I think if you had asked me along the way which book was going to be the winner as I was reading the shortlist, I probably would have given you 2 or 3 different answers. So it's good that I've finally brought my feelings together and decided on which one it's going to be after finishing all the books and really going back and thinking about them. There is just one of them that has kept on coming back to me more than the others. So today I'm predicting the winner of the Women's Prize for Fiction 2026. I have my bottle of champagne to celebrate. I will drink this tonight. I can't wait. I think one of the things that really struck me as I was reading this book was just how the books and the characters and the stories were exploring identity and finding our voices and belonging and love and friendship and grief. And even though the stories were incredibly different in the books, so many of these characters, you could see them trying to understand who they are and how they fit in the world. Something that I think most of us are still trying to do. We do that until the end. Well, hopefully at some age we know ourselves, but I think even one of the oldest main characters that was there, I think Sybil, the correspondent, she was 73, but she was still trying to understand who she is. So I guess it never really ends. And I think that is one of the themes that connected me to all the books. And I think connected all the books for me. So let's start, of course, with the correspondent. I absolutely adored Sybil. I loved reading from an older narrator. There was something just so special reading from her perspective. It's something that I rarely do, and I want to do more. We just don't get enough stories centered on older women. So if you know of any, please write them in the comment section below. I'd really like to explore them. And Sybil felt completely alive in these books, in her letters, how she wrote. I loved her voice, her wit. I loved the way she reflected on her life through the years, and it's something that I'm finding myself also do. I love how she reflected on her life through the letters. I enjoyed this book so much that it inspired me to start writing letters myself, because at some point I was wishing that I could receive a letter from Sybil. Then I had to pinch myself like, Flo, she is a fictional character and I have to be my own Sybil. There's something incredibly beautiful about just slowing down and communicating in that way, because it's like you're journaling, but you're sharing your feelings with someone else. So this is one of the several books on the shortlist that made me cry and inspired me so much. Then there's Kingfisher. Oh my god, what I loved the most about this book was the exploration of love and friendship and care, especially in relationships that don't necessarily fit conventional expectations. Like, who says what works, how? Like, you decide what works for you. And this book really challenged me to think about connection and about intimacy and about companionship and just being vulnerable in a different way. I found parts of it incredibly eye-opening and touching, and I think it's a novel that I'll continue thinking about for a very long time. It's a small one, so I think I will go back and read it again and again. I cried at the end. I cried at the end of this. Hat the Lover by Lily King was probably one of the most challenging ones for me personally, as someone who hasn't read many of the classical texts that were referenced all throughout the novel. There are moments where I felt slightly outside of the conversation, because at the beginning I thought I could like Google and see, what is this book about? Then it felt very distracting, so I had to stop. And so because the characters were using these books to, you could see they were influencing their development as the story goes, and I felt like I was missing something. But that said, the emotional core of the story completely worked for me. I cried. The story itself was deeply touching, and even when I feel like I was missing most of the literary references, I was still moved by the characters and their experiences, and I was crying. I was just crying tears and tears. Yeah, quite a memorable read. And then there is Flashlight by Susan Chowi, which was probably the most ambitious novel on the shortlist. I think it's the biggest. The copy that I had was over 400, almost 450 pages. The writing is absolutely beautiful. Like, you eat it up. And I love the way the author explores identity through fragmented memories, family history, and relationship across different countries and in different periods of time. So it's over a long time. And the novel tackles so many themes and does it in such a large scale. That being said, because it was also the longest book on the shortlist, and of course how it was exploring all these themes and in so many different countries, I found myself tiring around the middle. There were parts that I couldn't really understand. Like, there were characters that were introduced that I felt did not do a lot for the story. And even though I admired what the author was doing, like, it takes a lot of research to write such a book, there were moments when I was reading it and it felt like a chore. Like, I would put it down and not really be in a rush to pick it up again, like some of the other books on the shortlist. I still think it's an incredible and remarkable achievement to write such a book, but it just didn't connect with me emotionally quite as strongly as some of the others. Even though I cried because I was reading it around Mother's Day, and it also explores motherhood, a relationship between a mother and a daughter. Yeah, I still cried. As for Dominion, this was one of the books on the shortlist that unfortunately didn't wow me in the same way as the others. I enjoyed aspects of it. I could see what the author was trying to do because it was something different, but it just didn't leave the same lasting emotional impact on me like the others. Sometimes that's just what happens with reading. Every book finds its reader differently, and this one simply wasn't my standout. What struck me the most about this shortlist was how many of these books were searching for identity, but in different ways. Whether it was Sybil looking back at her life in the Correspondent through the letters that she's written throughout the years, the fragmented memories that I read in Flashlight with the daughter Louisa and her mom, and of course her dad, or the coming of age journey of Mercy in the Mercy Step. These novels were somehow all asking what shapes us into the people that we become. So after reading all of the 6 books, which one do I think will win, or do I really, really hope will win? My prediction is, drum rolls please, The Mercy Step. And the reason that this comes on top of the list for me, it's actually the one that I read. The first, I read it back in January, even before it was shortlisted, is that it accomplishes something that is incredibly difficult. Because at its heart, it's a coming of age story of this young girl growing up in the 1960s in Bradford. But it's also about identity and belonging. I absolutely love child narrators because we experience the world alongside someone who is still trying to understand who she is. So she's looking at it from a child's perspective. So she's innocent, but she's also allowed to air out her feelings without fear of reprimand. But what impressed me, I think, the most about this is her journey doesn't happen in isolation. And I think that is something that I, as a Black woman living in a white majority country, this is something that I experience. And I think it's something that I cannot ignore. You know, I can just, like, I can read other stories written by people where nothing about race or belonging comes in, but not forever. Like, I have to find some relatability into the book. Because for me, my life doesn't happen in isolation. The novel explores family and community and, of course, racism, microaggression, and what it means to grow up as a Black person in the UK back then in the 1960s. But most of the things that she addresses are still happening even now. The search for identity is deeply, deeply personal. I love the Caribbean history that is in it, but it's also shaped by larger societal and social realities. You know, growing up, there's how it is for a Black family trying to find a house, the school system, and those things also need to be considered. And for me, that was the combination that made the book so powerful. It is intimate, but it's also expansive at the same time. It's about one person's story, but it also speaks to broader questions that need to be addressed, like belonging and family and finding your voice. And when I think about which book in this pile or in this shortlist will linger with me the most, it still comes to The Mercy Step, I think, because it is unfortunately relatable. Fortunately and unfortunately relatable. So I will keep on returning to it. And that is why I am predicting it, and I am hoping that it wins the Women's Prize for Fiction 2026. This is for you, Mercy Step. This is for you, Masha. I'd love to know what you think. Which book, if you read the shortlist, which book would you choose as the winner? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you enjoy book content, reading vlogs, reviews, and discussions about great books, diverse books, please don't forget to subscribe, of course, like, comment, because I'll be back soon with more bookish videos. Thank you so much, so much, so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Let's hope The Mercy Step wins, but whichever book wins, congratulations to the winners. I enjoyed this reading challenge. It opened up my world of reading, my world of books, and there's so many other books that I'm going to read. I've discovered so many great content creators, and I think I will keep on doing more reading challenges because I enjoyed this one. Yeah, I really did.